Hello, my name is Valerie Cox, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm going to be making a series of videos on overcoming post-traumatic stress disorder. So, I've been a therapist for 20 years, and I worked with a lot of people who had trauma, and then I developed my own complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So, it wasn't just a regular diagnosis. It was considered complex because it came from many sources. But I didn't develop the post-traumatic stress disorder until 2012 is when I was diagnosed. So now it is 2018. So it's been several years of a struggle. As a therapist and a researcher, I studied what was out there, and I want to share with you my journey of healing, getting better, getting to where you can have a normal or a more normal life than you may be experiencing now. Because PTSD is hell on earth. It honestly is. And you may wonder if this is all there is, if this is the way it's going to be, then why should I be here? Because the world of psychology and psychiatry do not have the answers for PTSD, and it's largely considered untreatable, even though they do treat it, but it's considered incurable, and that the best thing you can do is learn to cope with it. And for me, that was not a good enough answer, and so I did not accept that from the world of psychology. And so I have been working on this for many years on ways to overcome PTSD. And I believe it is something that you can overcome. One thing to keep in mind is that the person you were before you developed this diagnosis, or even if you haven't been diagnosed but you just know that the person you were before is no longer. So it's grieving the person that you were before the diagnosis of that person no longer being here. Because it is like a brain injury and the personality has changed. But I can tell you that while things not everything is exactly the way I want it in my life, overall my life is better than it was prior to the diagnosis. So I want to give you just a little bit of hope that things can get better, and it can change, and it can change for the better, even if you're not functioning quite as high as you were before. But I've learned to lower the bar that I always set so highly for myself. You really need to throw the bar out, because you cannot measure your successes the way you measured them in the past. You measure your successes by where you were 6 months ago, a year ago. That's how you measure your success, not based on who you were before your diagnosis. So I'm going to share with you my story and some of the ways that I learned to recover from this disorder. Now, another thing is a lot of people don't want to use the word disorder because it affects their identity, and you are not post-traumatic stress disorder. You suffer from post-traumatic stress. So you'll see me here say disorder, but and I'll say I have PTSD, but suffering from post-traumatic stress basically says the same thing, and sometimes people are more comfortable with it. And disorder sounds like something that's inherent, maybe sent down through your DNA, the genetics involved, things like bipolar disorder that were kind of passed down genetically to you, or some of the other things. But this wasn't passed down to you. This was something that happened to you. It happened to your brain. It was an incident or a series of incidents that created a change in your brain. And so I believe that if you can change your brain one way, you can change your brain the other way. Because the brain is adaptable, it's healable, You can change the way your brain functions. You can change your neurons in your brain. And so I will be teaching you some ways to change your brain, change the way you think about what's going on. Coping skills are very, very important, but they're not all that there is. But they're crucial, but they're not the cure either. What they do is help you get through each day, and that's what you need right now, is getting through each day, surviving each day while you are recovering. So rather than, I would prefer to say that we are in post-traumatic stress recovery rather than having post-traumatic stress disorder. So you can automatically see a shift in the paradigm of having a disorder to being in recovery. You can, alcoholism, they say you're in recovery, but mental illness, they don't say I'm in schizophrenia recovery, or I'm in bipolar recovery, or depression recovery. But this is something you can recover from, just like alcoholism is. And so I think that one of the important pieces to this is changing the mindset of what PTSD is and what it's not and what it can be. And so I prefer to call this recovery because I think that it encaptures this disorder, if you'll give me that, this problem, better. And it also gives you a shift in mindset to know that I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. Wellness and perfection and 100%, that takes a long time. I'm not there yet after all these years, but I have recovered a lot, and I'm functioning, and I function at a pretty high level, even though I function no near the level that I did prior to this. However, I've learned how to set priorities. I've learned how to set things aside and just put that over there, and I'm going to put this on a shelf, and maybe I'll come back to it, maybe I won't. So some things that I was working on before, I can no longer do. I've learned that I have to keep my stress level down. I cannot take on too much, or I get stressed out. If I get stressed out, then I get depressed, and then I'm spending time in bed, and that's no productivity. So you have to learn to have a balance between productivity that may not be as high as you desire, but not getting into the non-productivity time where you're just spending time in bed. So anyway, the first thing I recommend, I'm going to go ahead and give you a way to start this recovery process. There's not really a first thing or second thing. There's some things that are very important. One thing that helped me was to begin listening to brain music. You can find brain music on YouTube and download it, convert it. If you go to Firefox, you will find YouTube to MP3 converters. Chrome doesn't do that anymore for copyright reasons, but Firefox still does, which is good. So I want you to look up brain music, brainwave music, brain healing music, because it is made to where it works on both sides of your brain, which again starts changing your brain and balancing it, calming it. So move the music you like using one of the add-ons through Firefox. Move it, change it to an MP3, put it on your MP3 player, and use headphones. I listen to this stuff hours on end, and I noticed a change in my brain, which connected to later further healing. And so that's one thing I would do is start there, and then I'll be giving you more tips along the way of how to cope with this in healthier ways than you may be doing now. So I hope that this series will be helpful. I know that God is using me and my experience to reach out to others from someone not only as a survivor, but as someone who is an overcomer and knows how to do research, is a therapist, and has learned some things that work, that truly work, instead of what I found initially, which was very little and very little hope for those who have been suffering with this. So, thank you. I'm also going to set up, as I progress along this path, I want to set up a donation link to Wounded Warriors. I have a heart for veterans. I'm not a veteran. I am a survivor, but post-traumatic stress comes through many, many ways, and one of the ways is through combat. And with my work with educational videos for veterans, and working with counselors that work with veterans, I do have a heart for them, and so that's why I'm specializing I'm connecting this with help for veterans. So, and partly I studied suicide prevention for many years, 11 years, in suicide and in the veteran population. And I know that it is extremely high. About 18 to 22 veterans a day in the United States commit suicide. And so I think that it's especially important to reach out to them. And so that's what I'm doing. So I have learned a lot to be able to help veterans, as well as those who've developed this from other means. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope to continue working with you, along with you. If there's something you want me to address, please post at the bottom of this video. I still haven't developed my YouTube page yet, so I'm actually starting ahead, and I'm going to make a series of videos as I develop the YouTube channel. So that way I have some good materials that I can put out right away. So thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to working with you and hopefully helping you along as you go through this journey. Thank you.